Jack Morrison pressed his face against the cold metal of the viewing port and watched the stars drift by. The USS Meridian moved slowly through space, carrying its crew toward the Kepler 442 system. Jack had been waiting for this mission for 3 years. As a xenobiologist, he dreamed of finding new life forms on distant worlds. The ship was not built for war. It carried no weapons, only scientific equipment and a crew of 12 people. Jack loved the peaceful nature of their work. They were explorers, not soldiers. Their mission was simple: study the planets around Kepler 442 and look for signs of life. Captain Lisa Parker walked up behind him. She was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes. "Excited about tomorrow, Jack?" she asked. Jack nodded. "I've been dreaming about this for years. The scans show that the third planet might have water." "If there's water, there might be life," Lisa smiled. "Just remember to be careful. We don't know what's out there." Jack had grown up in Colorado, hiking in the mountains and studying animals. His grandfather had been a soldier in Vietnam, but Jack preferred books to guns. He believed that understanding was better than fighting. That belief would soon be tested in ways he never imagined. The next morning, Jack was in the lab when the alarm started screaming. Red lights flashed throughout the ship. Captain Parker's voice came over the speakers. "All hands to battle stations. We have unknown ships approaching." Jack had never heard Lisa sound scared before. He ran to the bridge and saw her staring at the main screen. 3 massive ships were moving toward them. They were black and covered in sharp edges, like giant metal thorns floating in space. "Who are they?" Jack asked. Ben Carter, the navigator, was typing quickly at his station. "I've never seen ships like these. They're not in any database." The communications officer, Katie Walsh, looked up from her console. "They're sending a message. It's not in any human language." The main screen changed to show a creature that made Jack's blood run cold. It looked like a cross between a lizard and a spider, with 6 arms and eyes that glowed red. When it spoke, its voice was like grinding metal. "Weak humans. You will surrender your ship. We are the Vorthic Empire. Resistance is death." Captain Parker stood up straight. "This is Captain Lisa Parker of the USS Meridian. We are a peaceful research vessel. We have no weapons and pose no threat to you." The creature on the screen made a sound that might have been laughter. "All species say they are peaceful. All species lie. You will be boarded. Those who resist will die quickly. Those who surrender will die slowly." Jack watched in horror as the alien ships surrounded the Meridian. They were trapped with no way to escape. The research ship's engines were no match for the sleek warships closing in around them. "They're locking onto us with some kind of beam," Ben reported. "I can't break free." Captain Parker turned to her crew. "Destroy all sensitive data. Don't let them learn about Earth's location or defenses." Jack ran back to his lab. His hands shook as he deleted files from the computer. Information about Earth's military bases, population centers, and defensive systems could not fall into enemy hands. He had sworn an oath to protect humanity, even if it meant his own death. The ship shuddered as the aliens attached their boarding craft. Jack could hear metal being cut somewhere in the distance. He finished destroying the data and hid the backup drives in a secret compartment he had built behind his desk. Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridors. Jack heard Lisa shouting orders, then the sound of energy weapons firing. The battle was brief and one-sided. The Meridian's crew had only small arms against the aliens' advanced weapons. Jack hid in his lab, hoping the aliens might miss him. He listened to the sounds of his friends being captured or killed. Katie Walsh screamed once, then went silent. Ben Carter's voice called out for help, then was cut off. The lab door exploded inward. 3 Vorthic soldiers entered, each one nearly 7 feet tall and covered in natural armor. They moved like deadly spiders, their 6 arms ending in claws that could cut through metal. "Human found," one of them said in broken English. "This one alive." Jack raised his hands. "I surrender. Please don't hurt me." The lead soldier grabbed Jack with 2 of its arms and lifted him off the ground. Its grip was like a steel trap. "You come with us, human. You will answer questions." They dragged Jack through the corridors of his ship. Bodies lay scattered throughout the passages. Jack saw Lisa Parker slumped against a wall, her uniform torn and bloody. Katie Walsh was motionless near the communications console. Ben Carter was nowhere to be seen. "My friends," Jack whispered. "What did you do to them?" "Dead humans tell." "No lies," the soldier replied. "Living humans tell many lies. You will learn the difference." And they took Jack to one of the alien ships. The inside was dark and smelled like rotting meat. The gravity was much stronger than on Earth, making every step difficult. Jack's legs felt like lead weights. The aliens threw him into a small cell barely large enough for a human to stand upright. The walls were covered in sharp metal spikes, and the floor was cold steel. A small hole in the corner served as a toilet. There was no bed, no chair, and no window. "You will wait here," the guard said. "Commander Zethkara will speak with you soon. He has many questions about your species." The cell door slammed shut with a sound like breaking bones. Jack was alone in the darkness, surrounded by the smell of fear and death. He could hear other prisoners crying somewhere in the distance. The aliens had collected creatures from many different worlds. Jack sat on the cold floor and tried to think. His grandfather had told him stories about being a prisoner of war in Vietnam. "The key to survival," his grandfather had said, "is never giving up hope. No matter how bad things get, you keep fighting in your heart." Jack closed his eyes and remembered his grandfather's words. He thought about the hidden data drives in his lab. If the aliens found them, they would learn everything about Earth's defenses. Billions of people would die. The ship shuddered as it moved through space. Jack was being taken to some unknown destination, probably a prison or interrogation center. He had seen enough war movies to know what was coming. The aliens would try to break him, to make him betray his own species. Hours passed in the darkness. Jack's legs cramped from the awkward position, but there was no room to stretch. The gravity made everything worse, turning simple movements into painful struggles. His throat was dry and his stomach empty. Finally, a guard opened the cell door. "Time to meet the commander," it said. Jack was dragged through long corridors filled with prison cells. He saw creatures from dozens of different worlds, all looking broken and hopeless. Some had been there so long they no longer seemed alive. They brought him to a large chamber, where a massive Vorthok sat on a throne-like chair. This one was different from the others. Scars covered its armored body, and its eyes burned with intelligence and cruelty. "I am Commander Zethkara," the creature said. Its voice was smoother than the others, but somehow more frightening. "You are the human scientist from the ship we captured." Jack said nothing. He stood as straight as he could, despite the crushing gravity. "You will tell me about your species," Zethkara continued. "Where is your home world? How many ships do you have? What are your weaknesses?" "I won't tell you anything," Jack said. Zethkara made that grinding laugh again. "They all say that at first. But humans are weak creatures. You will break quickly, just like all the others. I give you 3 days before you beg to tell me everything." Jack looked into the alien's glowing eyes and felt something his grandfather had taught him. Fear was natural, but courage was a choice. "You're wrong about humans," he said quietly. "We don't break as easily as you think." The commander's expression changed slightly. For just a moment, there was something like curiosity in its eyes. "We shall see, human. We shall see." Jack had been in the prison for 3 months when Commander Zethkara began the real torture. The first weeks had been about breaking his body. They gave him little food and water. The gravity crushed his bones. The temperature changed from freezing cold to burning hot every few hours, but Jack Morrison was stronger than the aliens expected. He used his scientific mind to survive. He counted the temperature changes and learned to predict them. He exercised in the tiny cell to keep his muscles working. He created mental games to keep his brain sharp. The aliens were surprised. Most prisoners broke within days. Jack was still thinking clearly after 3 months. Commander Zethkara decided it was time for stronger methods. 2 guards dragged Jack from his cell to a different room. This one was larger and filled with strange machines. Metal tables covered in straps sat in the center. Wires and cables hung from the ceiling like deadly snakes. Sit, Zethkara commanded. Jack was strapped to one of the tables. The metal was cold against his skin. A helmet-like device was placed on his head. Wires connected it to machines that hummed with evil energy. This is a neural probe, the commander explained. It will read your thoughts and memories. Fighting. It will cause great pain. Jack felt electricity shoot through his brain. It was like having molten metal poured into his skull. His body shook and his vision went white. The pain was unlike anything he had ever experienced. "Where is your homeworld?" Zethkara asked. Jack bit his tongue to keep from screaming. Blood filled his mouth. "I won't tell you." The commander increased the power. Jack's entire nervous system felt like it was on fire. He could taste copper and smell burning flesh. His heart beat so fast he thought it might explode. "Your planet's location?" Zethkara demanded. "Show me the star charts." Jack remembered his grandfather's stories about torture. "The mind is like a house with many rooms," his grandfather had said. "When the enemy breaks down one door, you retreat to another room and lock it behind you." Jack created mental barriers. In his mind, he imagined walls of steel separating his secrets from the pain. When the probe pushed against one wall, he built another behind it. The technique worked, but it took enormous effort. Hours passed. Jack's body was covered in sweat and blood. His muscles cramped from the electrical shocks, but he held on to his secrets. The location of Earth remained hidden. Zethkara was frustrated. "Impossible. No creature can resist the probe for so long." "You don't understand humans," Jack gasped. "We're more stubborn than you think." The commander tried different approaches. He showed Jack false images of Earth being destroyed. Cities burning, oceans boiling, millions of people dying. The pictures looked real, but Jack knew they were fake. "This is what will happen to your world," Zethkara said. "Tell me where it is, and I will make their deaths quick." Jack closed his eyes. "Those images are lies. You wouldn't be torturing me if you already knew where Earth was." The alien's anger was obvious. His red eyes glowed brighter. "You will break, human. Everyone breaks eventually." Day after day, the torture continued. Jack was given just enough food and water to stay alive. The neural probe sessions lasted for hours. Sometimes Zethkara used drugs that made Jack see horrible things. Other times he used sound waves that felt like hammers hitting his skull, but Jack learned to adapt. He studied the patterns of torture and prepared his mind for each session. He created mental exercises that helped him cope with the pain. He remembered every detail about the prison layout and the guard routines. After 2 months of daily torture, something changed. Jack heard new voices in the corridor outside his cell. Human voices. One of them was a woman crying softly. The next day, guards brought a new prisoner to the torture chamber. She was a human woman in her 30s, wearing the torn uniform of a medical officer. Her name tag read, Dr. A. Rodriguez. "Amy," she whispered when she saw Jack. "Amy Rodriguez. I was the chief medical officer on the UES Darwin." Jack's heart sank. Another human ship had been captured. How many survivors? "Just me," Amy said. Tears ran down her face. "They killed everyone else." Zethkara entered the chamber, followed by his guards. "2 humans are better than 1, he said. "Perhaps you will be more cooperative when you see your female suffer." They strapped Amy to the second table. She looked at Jack with frightened eyes. "What do they want?" "Information about Earth," Jack said. "Don't tell them anything." The commander activated Amy's neural probe. She screamed immediately. The sound cut through Jack like a knife. He had endured his own torture, but watching someone else suffer was much worse. "Stop!" Jack shouted. "She doesn't know anything useful. She's just a doctor." "Tell me about Earth's defenses," Zethkara demanded, "or she will suffer for days." Amy's body shook with pain. Blood came from her nose. Jack wanted to help her, but he couldn't betray billions of people to save one person. "I'm sorry," he whispered to Amy, but Amy surprised him. Despite the pain, she looked at Jack and nodded. Don't tell them anything, she gasped. That's an order. Jack realized that Amy was stronger than she appeared. She was a military officer, trained to resist interrogation. Together they might be able to survive what neither could endure alone over the following weeks. Jack and Amy were tortured together. They developed a system of communication using eye movements and small gestures. Jack taught Amy the mental techniques his grandfather had shown him. Amy shared medical knowledge about how to recover from torture. They supported each other through the worst moments. When one of them was close to breaking, the other would find a way to give them strength. Jack realized that the aliens had made a mistake by keeping them together. Zethkara became increasingly frustrated. Your species is more resilient than expected, he admitted during one session, but resilience has limits. Jack pretended to be weaker than he was. He let his voice shake when he spoke. He acted like the torture was slowly breaking him down. But inside, he was planning something the aliens would never expect. During the long hours in his cell, Jack thought about the prison layout. He remembered every corridor, every guard post, every weakness in the alien security. He began to understand the Vorthek language by listening to the guards talk. More importantly, he learned about the other prisoners. The facility held creatures from dozens of different worlds. Each species had unique abilities and knowledge. The Vorthaks kept them separated. Assuming they were too different to work together, that assumption would prove to be their biggest mistake. One day, after a particularly brutal session, Jack was alone with Amy in the torture chamber. The guards had left them strapped to the tables while they attended to other duties. Jack? Amy whispered. I've been thinking about the prison's medical systems. There are flaws in their design. Jack turned his head to look at her. What kind of flaws? They've built this place to hold individual species, not to prevent cooperation between species. Their medical computers assume each prisoner type has different needs. But what if we could use that against them? Jack's mind began to race. Amy was right. The Vorthaks had designed the prison based on their own rigid thinking. They couldn't imagine different species working together. We need to get word to the other prisoners, Jack said quietly. If we can coordinate our efforts, It's possible, Amy agreed. But we'd need to make them think we're broken first. Give them false hope. Jack smiled for the first time in months. I have an idea, but it's going to require perfect timing. When Zethkara returned, Jack was ready to begin the most dangerous performance of his life. He was going to make the aliens believe they had finally broken the stubborn human spirit, but in reality, Jack Morrison was about to prove that humans were far more dangerous when they stopped fighting fair and started fighting smart. Jack Morrison had been in the prison for 6 months when he decided to fake his surrender. The plan was dangerous, but it was the only way to gain the freedom he needed to organize the other prisoners. During his next torture session, Jack let his voice break. He screamed louder than usual when the neural probe activated. His body shook with fake terror as Commander Zethkara increased the power. Please, Jack begged. I can't take it anymore. I'll tell you what you want to know. Zethkara leaned forward, his red eyes glowing with satisfaction. Finally, the human spirit breaks like all the others. Tell me about your homeworld. Jack took a deep breath and began to lie. He told the commander that Earth was located in a distant star system, far from its real location. He described fake military bases and invented weaknesses in human defenses. He made humanity sound much weaker than it really was. Humans are afraid of loud sounds, Jack said, his voice trembling. Our eardrums are very sensitive. A sonic weapon would disable entire armies. The commander recorded everything. He believed every word because he wanted to believe it. Like, old bully Zethkara thought that enough pain could break anyone. Excellent, the alien said. You will remain alive in case we need more information. But your usefulness is nearly ended. Jack was returned to his cell, but now the guards were less careful. They thought he was broken and harmless. This was exactly what Jack had hoped for. Over the next few weeks, Jack began to explore the prison. During the brief moments when the guards were distracted, he discovered that the facility was much larger than he had imagined. Hundreds of cells held prisoners from dozens of different worlds. The Vortex had built the prison based on their own rigid thinking. Each species was kept in a separate section. The guards assumed that different aliens could never work together. This assumption would be their downfall. Jack made contact with prisoners in nearby cells. He started with the ones closest to him, tapping messages on the walls using a simple code. The first alien he contacted was in the cell next to his. "Who are you?" Jack tapped in basic mathematical patterns. The reply came slowly. "I am Kexstar, Saurian Collective, engineer." Jack's heart jumped. An engineer could be very useful. He began to teach Kexstar a simple communication system using wall taps and scratches. The reptilian alien was intelligent and learned quickly. "How long have you been here?" Jack asked. 2 years, came the reply. "I have given up hope." "Don't give up." Jack tapped back. "Humans never give up. I have a plan." Through careful questioning, Jack learned that Kexstar had been captured during a Vorthak raid on a mining colony. The engineer knew how to build and repair complex machines. More importantly, he understood the prison's power systems. Jack spent weeks gaining Kexstar's trust. He shared his food through a crack in the wall. He taught the alien simple Earth songs to keep his spirits up. Slowly, Kexstar began to believe that escape might be possible. "The Vorthax made a mistake," Jack explained, during one of their quiet conversations. "They think we can't work together because we're different species, but differences can be strengths if we use them right." Amy Rodriguez was also making contacts. As a medical officer, she had knowledge that other prisoners desperately needed. She taught basic first aid through the wall taps, helping injured prisoners treat their wounds. Together, Jack and Amy began to map the prison's social structure. They identified natural leaders among the different species. They found prisoners with useful skills like engineering, communications, and security knowledge. The breakthrough came when Jack made contact with a prisoner 3 cells away. This alien was completely different from anything he had ever seen. It looked like a cloud of glowing gas contained in a transparent suit. "I am Whisper of Wind," the being communicated through vibrations in the air. "I am of the ethereal communes. I have been watching your activities with interest." Jack was amazed. "You can hear our wall tapping?" "I can sense vibrations through the entire prison structure," Whisper of Wind replied. "Your communication network is larger than you realize. There are 47 prisoners now in contact with each other. This changed everything." Jack had thought he was building a small resistance group. Instead, he had accidentally created a prison-wide communication network. Prisoners from dozens of different worlds were already talking to each other. "What do you know about the prison's weaknesses?" Jack asked. "Many things," Whisper of Wind replied. "The Vortex designed this place to hold individual species, not to prevent cooperation between species. Their security systems have gaps when different alien abilities are combined." Jack began to see the bigger picture. Each species had unique capabilities that the Vortex didn't fully understand. The gaseous beings could move through air vents. The reptilian engineers understood the power systems. The insectoid creatures could fit through tiny spaces, but the most important discovery was that the Vortex had never faced organized resistance. They conquered worlds by overwhelming them with superior technology and numbers. They had never learned to fight against guerrilla tactics or coordinated sabotage. "We need to start small," Jack told his growing network of contacts. "Little acts of sabotage that look like accidents. We make them think their equipment is failing." The resistance began with simple tricks. Kexstar used his engineering knowledge to cause minor power fluctuations. Whisper of Wind interfered with air filtration systems. Other prisoners jammed locks and damaged cleaning equipment. The guards blamed these problems on old equipment and poor maintenance. They never suspected organized resistance, because they couldn't imagine different species working together. Amy Rodriguez became the Resistance's intelligence officer. She kept track of guard schedules and identified their weaknesses. She learned which guards were lazy and which ones were dangerous. "The night shift guards are the weakest," she reported. They're tired and less alert. That's our best chance for any major operations. Jack realized that his role was becoming more than just a prisoner trying to escape. He was becoming a leader, uniting different species through a common cause. His ability to see the bigger picture and find creative solutions made him the natural center of the resistance. Humans are different from other species, Hexstar observed during one of their conversations. You see connections that others miss? You make us believe we can work together. The resistance grew stronger each week. Prisoners who had given up hope began to believe in the possibility of freedom. The communication network expanded to include almost every prisoner in the facility, but Jack knew that small acts of sabotage were not enough. Commander Zethkara was getting suspicious. The number of equipment failures was becoming too high. To ignore, we need to move to the next phase, Jack told his closest allies. We need to start gathering supplies and weapons, and we need to find out about the prison's defenses. Amy had been studying the medical bay during her brief visits for treatment. The guards keep weapons in a storage room near the infirmary. If we could get access to that room, I can reach it through the air vents, Whisper of Wind offered. But I would need a distraction. Jack's mind raced with possibilities. What if we staged a medical emergency? Something that would require multiple guards to respond? The plan was risky, but it was time to take bigger chances. Jack had learned that the Vortex were planning something new. Rumors spread through the prison that executions would begin soon. We're running out of time, Jack told the Resistance. If we're going to act, it has to be soon. Hexstar had been studying the prison's power grid. I can cause a major power failure, but only once. After that, they'll know it was sabotage. Then we make it count, Jack replied. We use the darkness to steal weapons and take control of key areas. As Jack lay in his cell that night, he thought about how much had changed. 6 months ago, he had been a peaceful scientist studying alien life. Now he was planning a prison uprising that would involve dozens of different species. His grandfather would have been proud. The old soldier had always said that leadership was about bringing out the best in others, not about being the strongest or smartest person in the room. Jack Morrison was about to prove that humans could do more than just survive. They could inspire others to fight for their freedom. Jack Morrison had been in the prison for 8 months when he learned that all prisoners would be executed. The news came from a guard who spoke too loudly while walking past the cells. The Vortex were converting the prison into a military base, and they no longer needed their captives. The execution order changed everything. There was no more time for careful planning or small acts of sabotage. If the prisoners were going to survive, they had to act immediately. Jack called an emergency meeting through the communication network. Using wall taps and air vibrations, he spread the word to every prisoner in the facility. The response was immediate and frightening. Many aliens had given up hope and were ready to die quietly. Listen to me, Jack tapped urgently. We don't have to die like animals. We can fight back. We can show them what happens when different species work together. Hexstar was the first to respond. The power grid is ready to fail. I can shut down the entire prison for 15 minutes. But after that, they'll have backup systems running. 15 minutes is enough, Jack replied. Whisper of Wind, can you reach the weapons storage during the blackout? Yes, came the ethereal response. I have mapped the air vent system. I can reach the armory and open the doors for others. Amy Rodriguez added her own information. I've counted the guards. There are 37 Vortex on duty at any time. Most of them are in the command center or the outer perimeter. Only 6 patrol the cell blocks. Jack felt his heart racing. This was it. After months of planning and building trust, they were about to attempt something that had never been done before. A coordinated uprising involving dozens of different alien species. Remember, Jack told the network, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every species the Vortex have enslaved. If we win, word will spread across the galaxy. Other prisoners will know that resistance is possible. The uprising was scheduled for the next night during the shift change when the guards were most distracted. Jack spent the day going over the plan with his closest allies. Every detail had to be perfect because they would only get one chance. As darkness fell, Jack felt the familiar fear that came before battle. His grandfather had described the same feeling before combat in Vietnam. Fear is normal, the old soldier had said. Courage is what you do despite the fear. The first part of the plan began at exactly midnight. Kexstar caused a massive power surge that overloaded the prison's main generators. Every light in the facility went out at once. Emergency systems tried to activate, but the reptilian engineer had sabotaged them hours earlier. The darkness was complete and terrifying. Jack heard guards shouting in confusion as their equipment failed. Emergency. Alarms tried to sound but produced only broken squeals before going silent. Now, Jack whispered. Cell doors throughout the prison began to open. Kexstar had reprogrammed the locking system during the power surge. Hundreds of prisoners emerged from their cells for the first time in months or years. Jack found his way to Amy's cell by feel. Together, they moved through the dark corridors toward the weapons storage. Other prisoners were moving too, each group heading to their assigned targets. Whisper of Wind reached the armory first. The gaseous being flowed through the air vents and opened the doors from inside. Jack and Amy arrived to find alien weapons. Scattered on the floor, ready for use, the Vorthok weapons were designed for 6-armed creatures, but Jack and Amy quickly figured out how to operate them. The energy rifles were heavy but simple to use. Jack grabbed 2 weapons and handed one to Amy. Stay close, he told her. We need to reach the command center before they restore power. The corridors were filled with moving shadows as prisoners spread throughout the facility. Jack heard the sounds of fighting echoing from different directions. Some groups had encountered guards and were battling in the darkness. Jack's team moved toward the command center, using the layout he had memorized during months of careful observation. They climbed through maintenance shafts and crawled along ventilation ducts to avoid the main corridors. The command center was located at the heart of the prison. It controlled everything from life support to communications. If they could capture it, they would control the entire facility. As they approached the center, Jack heard Vorthok voices shouting orders in their harsh language. Emergency lighting flickered on and off as the aliens tried to restore power to critical systems. Multiple containment breaches, one guard reported. Prisoners are loose in sectors 7 through 12. Impossible, came the reply. Different species cannot coordinate such an attack. Jack smiled in the darkness. The aliens still didn't understand what they were facing. Even now, with their prison falling apart around them, they couldn't believe that different species could work together. The assault on the command center began when Whisper of Wind disabled the air filtration system. Sleeping gas that the Vorthoks used to control prisoners was turned against them. Several guards collapsed before they realized what was happening. Jack and his team burst through the main entrance as other prisoner groups attacked from different directions. The surprised guards tried to fight back, but they were overwhelmed by the coordinated assault. The battle was fierce but brief. The Vorthoks were better armed and armored, but they had never faced anything like this coordinated attack. Prisoners with different abilities supported each other in ways the guards couldn't predict or counter. Kexstar used his engineering knowledge to turn the prison's own defense systems against the guards. Whisper of Wind moved through the walls to attack from unexpected angles. Other prisoners provided covering fire and medical support. Jack found himself face to face with Commander Zethkara in the center of the chaos. The alien commander was larger and stronger than Jack, but he was also confused and angry. "This is impossible," Zethkara snarled. "You were broken." "You told me everything about your weaknesses." "I lied," Jack said simply. "Humans are good at lying when we need to be." The commander lunged at Jack with all 6 arms, trying to tear him apart with his claws. But Jack had learned from months of studying Vorthok behavior. He knew how they moved and fought. Jack to the side and fired his stolen weapon. The energy blast caught Zethkara in the chest, sending him crashing into a bank of computers. The alien tried to get up, but his strength was fading. "You don't understand," the commander gasped. My people will never accept defeat from inferior species. That's your problem, Jack replied. You still think we're inferior. You never learned. That different doesn't mean weak. With the command center captured, the prisoners quickly took control of the entire facility. The remaining guards surrendered or fled to hidden bunkers. After 8 months of torture and imprisonment, the prisoners were finally free, but Jack knew their victory was far from complete. They were still deep in enemy space, surrounded by hostile forces. The prison facility had communication equipment, but no real weapons or ships capable of long-distance travel. We've won the first battle, Jack told the assembled prisoners. But the war is just beginning. Amy was already working on the communication systems, trying to send distress signals to friendly forces. The nearest human ship is 3 days away, she reported. But there's a Vorthek patrol fleet only 6 hours out. Jack looked around at the diverse group of aliens who had fought beside him. They came from dozens of different worlds, but they had learned to work together. That cooperation was their greatest strength. We can't outrun them, Jack said. But we don't have to. We just need to hold this position long enough for help to arrive. Kekstar was already examining the prison's defensive systems. The shields are strong, but the weapons are limited. We can fight, but not for long against a full fleet. Jack thought about his grandfather's stories of impossible battles and desperate last stands. Sometimes the best defense was a good offense. What? If we don't wait for them to attack us? Jack asked. What if we take the fight to them first? The idea was crazy, but crazy plans sometimes worked when nothing else would. Jack Morrison was about to prove that humans didn't just survive impossible situations. They found ways to win them. Jack Morrison stood in the command center of the captured prison, watching the screens that showed 6 Vorthak warships approaching. The patrol fleet would arrive in less than 4 hours. The prisoners had weapons and control of the facility, but they were still trapped deep in enemy space. The shields can hold for maybe 20 minutes against that fleet, Kekstar reported from the engineering station. After that, they'll blast through the hull and kill everyone inside. Amy Rodriguez was coordinating the evacuation of wounded prisoners to the medical bay. We have 43 prisoners who can't fight because of their injuries. If we're going to make a stand, we need to protect them. Jack studied the tactical display showing the approaching ships. His mind raced through possibilities. They could try to hide and hope the Vorthaks would pass by. They could send surrender messages and beg for mercy. Or they could do something completely unexpected. What ships do we have available? Jack asked. 3. Transport vessels and 1 small fighter, Amy replied. The transports are slow and lightly armed. The fighter is fast but can only carry 2 people. Jack looked around at the diverse group of aliens who had followed him this far. They came from dozens of different worlds, each with unique abilities and knowledge. Together they had achieved the impossible by capturing the prison. Now they needed another miracle. I have an idea, Jack said slowly. But it's going to require perfect timing and absolute trust. Whisper of wine drifted closer, its gaseous form glowing with curiosity. What do you propose, human leader? We split up, Jack explained. Most of you take the transport ships and head for friendly space. I'll stay behind with a small team and delay the patrol fleet. The reaction was immediate and negative. Prisoners from a dozen species began arguing at once, their translator devices creating a cacophony of protest. Impossible, Kekstar said firmly. We stay together. That is how we won the prison. And that's how we'll all die if the fleet catches. U.S., Jack replied. The transports are too slow to outrun warships. Someone has to buy you time to escape. Amy stepped forward, her face determined. If Jack stays, I stay. We're a team. No, Jack said gently. You need to lead the others too. Safety. You're the ranking military officer. The escaped prisoners will need someone they trust to speak for them. The debate continued for precious minutes while the Vorthek fleet drew closer. Finally, Whisper of Wine ended the argument with a simple statement. The human is right. His sacrifice gives us all a chance to live and carry word of our victory to the galaxy. but he will not face the enemy alone. 12 prisoners volunteered to stay behind with Jack. Kekstar insisted on remaining to operate the prison's defensive systems. Whisper of Wine could move through the facility's air vents to coordinate attacks. Others brought specialized skills. In weapons, communications, and tactics, the evacuation began immediately. Amy led the majority of prisoners to the transport ships, carrying with them evidence of Vorthak crimes and proof that interspecies cooperation was possible. The wounded were loaded first, followed by prisoners with vital intelligence about Vorthak military operations. "Promise me you'll survive this," Amy said as she prepared to leave. "I promise to make it count," Jack replied. "Tell Earth what happened here. Tell them that humans don't break under pressure. We find ways to fight back." The transport ships launched just as the Vorthak fleet entered weapons range. Jack watched them disappear into hyperspace, carrying hope to a dozen different worlds. Now came the hard part. 6 warships against 13 prisoners, Kekstar observed. "The odds are not favorable." "We don't need to win," Jack said. "We just need to make them pay such a high price that other Vorthak commanders will think twice before capturing prisoners." The first attack came as a demand for surrender. The Vorthak fleet commander's image appeared on the main screen, his red eyes blazing with fury. "Escaped prisoners, you will return to your cells immediately. Resistance will result in immediate execution." Jack stepped in front of the camera. "This is Jack Morrison, formerly a prisoner of the Vorthak Empire. We reject your terms. This facility is now under the control of the United Prisoners Liberation Front." The alien commander's expression changed to one of shocked recognition. "You are the human who broke under interrogation. You told us everything about your species' weaknesses." "I lied," Jack said simply. "And now you're about to learn what humans are really capable of when you push us too far." The attack began immediately. Energy beams lanced out from the Vorthak, ships striking the prison's shields. The barrier flared with each impact, slowly weakening under the sustained assault. Jack's plan was based on guerrilla tactics his grandfather had described from Vietnam. Instead of trying to match the enemy's firepower, they would use mobility and surprise to create maximum confusion. Kekstar had rigged the prison's internal systems to explode in sequence, creating the impression of much more damage than was actually occurring. Whisper of Wind moved through the air vents, appearing on security cameras throughout the facility to make it seem like there were prisoners everywhere. The psychological warfare worked. The Vorthak commanders became convinced they were facing a much larger force than 13 prisoners. They began making mistakes, concentrating their fire on empty sections while the real defenders moved to new positions. Jack used the Presen's communication array to broadcast on all frequencies, telling the story of their uprising and calling for other prisoners to resist their captors. The message would reach Vorthak facilities throughout the sector, carrying news that resistance was possible. The battle lasted for 3 hours. The prison shields finally collapsed under the sustained bombardment, but by then Jack's team had accomplished their real objective. The transport ships were safely away, carrying their message of hope across the galaxy. As Vorthak soldiers prepared to board the damaged facility, something unexpected happened. New ships appeared on the sensors, emerging from hyperspace at the edge of the system, but these weren't Vorthak vessels. "Multiple contacts," Kekstar reported with excitement in his voice. "I'm reading human, saurian, and ethereal signatures." "It's a rescue fleet?" Amy Rodriguez's voice came over the communicator. "Jack, are you still alive in there?" "We brought some friends." The rescue fleet was a miracle of interspecies cooperation. The escaped prisoners had reached their home governments and convinced them to work together for the first time in galactic history. Ships from a dozen different worlds had joined forces to rescue Jack and his volunteers. The Vorthak patrol fleet found itself outnumbered and outgunned. Faced with an alliance they had never seen before, the alien commanders made the only logical choice. They retreated, abandoning the prison facility to the rescue fleet. Jack Morrison was pulled from the wreckage of the command center, battered but alive. As medical teams treated his injuries, He watched through the windows as ships from different worlds worked together to evacuate the facility. "You did it," Amy said, tears streaming down her face. "You actually did it." "We all did it," Jack corrected. "Every prisoner who refused to give up. Every species that chose cooperation over isolation. This isn't just one human's victory. The rescue marked the beginning of a new era in galactic politics. The Interspecies Liberation Alliance was formed within months, dedicated to protecting prisoners of war and supporting resistance movements across the galaxy. Jack Morrison returned to Earth as a hero, but he knew the real victory belonged to everyone who had chosen to work together despite their differences. The Vorthek Empire still existed, but it now faced organized opposition for the first time in its history. In his report to Earth Command, Jack wrote, "They thought torture would break me. They thought humans were weak and primitive. They were wrong on both counts. Humans don't break when pushed to our limits. We adapt, we cooperate, and we fight back harder than anyone expects." The legend of Jack Morrison spread throughout the galaxy, inspiring countless others to resist oppression. But Jack himself knew the truth. He hadn't won through superior strength or advanced technology. He had won by proving that different species could work together when they shared a common cause. The Vortheks had made their greatest mistake when they assumed that diversity meant weakness. Jack Morrison and his fellow prisoners had shown them that diversity, when united by courage and determination, was the greatest strength of all.